that. I've got easy. No, we'll talk later, baby. Come on, come on. No. I said we'll talk about it later. No, get out of here. I got things to do. Get out of here. I said we'll talk about it later.
Hello, State Police. There's a terrible fight out here in front of a house at 8450 Lakeview. A woman's getting badly beaten. Could you please get someone over here immediately to help?
3325,
Wilmington 3325, 024060, Voice Road.
3325, be en route to the report of a violent domestic, man and woman fighting in the front yard. 8450 Lakeview, just outside of Spencer.
3325, clear K218. Start to county for a backup if you would.
Clear 3325, we'll start Owen County for the assist.
60-10, I monitored the state's request for assist on the violent domestic. I'll be en route.
Clear 60-10.
What's going on?
He knocked me off the porch.
Are you okay?
Don't go in
Are you
there.
okay?
Yes, I'm
Stay
fine.
right there. Don't move.
Hold right there. Let go of it. Let go of it. Let go of
it. The incident that you have just seen demonstrates one of the many serious hazards that you can encounter as a law enforcement officer who investigates clandestine drug laboratories. The chemicals typically found in these clan labs may be explosive, flammable, or toxic in nature. They can emit poisonous gases that are odorless and invisible. They may even have powerful carcinogenic effects on your body that may not become evident until years after exposure to these substances. This is why anyone who raids or dismantles clandestine drug labs should have specialized safety equipment. It's also why all state and local law enforcement agencies involved in these efforts must receive at least 40 hours of basic laboratory safety training. This training must conform to the standards and guidelines for safety set forth by OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. In 1987, the Drug Enforcement Administration created a special training facility for Clan Lab training. All DEA special agents, as well as state and local officers who are assigned to DEA task forces, are mandated to graduate from this training before being assigned to Clan Lab enforcement teams. The purpose of this video is to provide law enforcement officers with a basic familiarity of the hazards you may face in the event you encounter one of these chemical time bombs. Remember, however, that the information you will receive from this video is very basic and will only familiarize you with the subject. It does not qualify you to investigate or dismantle clandestine drug labs. If you should accidentally encounter one of these clan labs, we strongly advise you to do 3 things. 1. Exit the area immediately. 2. Secure the area. And finally, 3. Notify the nearest state police post and request the activation of the state police clandestine laboratory team. As a law enforcement officer, you are trained in a variety of specialized skills and procedures. But do you know which of the common chemicals found in a clandestine drug lab will burn through your skin if you touch it, or burn through your lungs if you breathe it? Do you know which chemical combinations can precipitate a flash fire or an explosion? This suspect obviously didn't know or care about chemical safety training, at least not until his drug lab blew up. Do you know what happens to red phosphorus when it is exposed to excessive amounts of heat? If you were to walk into a clandestine drug lab tomorrow, would you know what to do to keep from being killed or seriously injured, even if the drug lab was unoccupied? Taking down a Klan drug lab is a deadly puzzle, a chemical time bomb just waiting to blow up in your face. Everywhere you look, there are hazards, both to you and fellow officers, from caustic chemicals that can burn to invisible, odorless gases, like the poisonous gas that killed the occupants of this lab, to unstable compounds that can explode violently with even the slightest contact. All of this in addition to the threats that you would normally anticipate in taking down an illegal drug lab. Armed criminals, high on methamphetamine, even booby traps. Raiding a clandestine drug lab is quite possibly one of the most potentially deadly situations you can encounter in law enforcement. But you can defuse this chemical bomb if you have all the pieces to the puzzle. But remember, this video can only bring these issues to your attention. To become truly prepared, you will need to attend and graduate from a certified police clandestine laboratory training school. Miss a piece of this puzzle, and the consequences could be catastrophic. To help prepare for what you may encounter when raiding a clandestine drug lab, you should understand the violence typically surrounding the production of the drug of choice of Klan labs, methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is a powerful central nervous system stimulant drug, similar in effect to cocaine and its effect on the body. It is easily made and widely abused. Methamphetamines have been around since 1887, and in the 1930s it was sold as a decongestant. The drug wasn't abused until World War II, when soldiers from Germany, Japan, and the U.S. took the drug to stay alert during battle. Japanese kamikaze pilots consumed especially large, almost toxic quantities of the drug. Since the early 70s, methamphetamine abuse in the U.S. has grown to epidemic proportions. Because of its ease of manufacturing, methamphetamines has become one of the most popular drugs of choice for clandestine labs. In recent years, over 90% of the clandestine labs seized by the Indiana State Police were producing methamphetamine. Klan labs can also produce methamphetamine, commonly known as CAT, or LSD, PCP, MDMA, and an assortment of other designer drugs. The risks to those who use drugs produced in clandestine laboratories are more sinister than most other drugs being abused today. Remember, drugs produced in Klan labs have no quality controls. If the clandestine chemist made a mistake, the abuser's body may never recover from the deadly chemical concoction, and so might your body if you are accidentally exposed to the substance. Additionally, the paranoid psychosis that Klan lab products can create in abusers poses an even greater threat to law enforcement officers and innocent bystanders alike.
Sean Nelson, the man who went on a car-crunching rampage in a stolen tank 2 years ago, was addicted to meth. And just last February, Cameron Taylor, another admitted tweaker, hijacked a bus at knife point and led police on a long chase around the county.
Many clandestine lab operators are also users of their product. Be wary of the violence surrounding this drug, or be dead. Even after you have secured a Klan lab site against violent attacks from its operators, there are still extremely deadly risks to your health and safety. Knowing what these health risks are is another piece of this deadly puzzle that you must solve. Some indications that you have come upon a clandestine lab include strong or unusual chemical odors, or complaints of such odors from neighbors, heavy fortifications to the property, suspicious automobile traffic and visitors to the site, chemical cans or drums in the yard, and people coming outside only to smoke cigarettes. Don't investigate further until you have the proper backup, support, and safety personnel on hand. We cannot give you sufficient training in this video to prepare you for the chemicals you may encounter in a Klan lab and the precautions they warrant. You can only gain that knowledge by attending an OSHA-certified clandestine lab safety school. We can, however, give you some basic knowledge that may help you if you should accidentally encounter one of these drug labs. As you can see, playing it safe in a Klan lab is much more than securing the scene and suspects. Your health and safety, including the people in the surrounding area, are at risk from the moment you go in, and the effects may not be known until long after you have left.
Prior to 1987, we had no clandestine laboratory safety schools or procedures or policies dealing directly with clandestine laboratories and the dangers that they pose. In 1985, I entered a laboratory and spent about 3 hours in the laboratory. It was a methamphetamine laboratory and it had a high acid vapor content in the atmosphere. I spent about 3 hours in the laboratory and lost consciousness. A month later, I took my annual physical examination. As a result of that physical examination, all of my liver function tests were exceedingly high. I also was reported to have spots on my lungs. For the next 4 years, all of my liver function tests were off the charts. Today, this is 12 years later, I still have one liver function test that's abnormally high. All of this was a result of the high acid vapor content of the environment that I was exposed to.
In 1987, when Ron raided that lab, there was no protective gear or training on how to deal with the hazardous chemicals he inhaled. Those chemicals have become a medical time bomb for Ron, living inside his body to this day. Today, it is different. You have the access to the equipment. You have access to the training. So there is no excuse to miss this piece of the puzzle. But if you do, you may not be as lucky as Ron. Of course, a part of solving any puzzle is being able to identify the pieces and how they fit. Being able to identify the chemicals you might find in a Klan lab will help you solve the Klan lab puzzle and come out alive.
As we see throughout this video, many clandestine laboratories in the United States utilize sophisticated equipment, such as this. This equipment is identical in many ways to their factory or industrial counterparts. Legitimate licit labs utilize specially made heating mantles, reaction vessels, and condenser tubes. In reality, all that's necessary to cook methamphetamine is a setup such as this. And much like its intended use, this hot plate can be utilized on a kitchen countertop. All that's required are the appropriate precursors, reagents, and solvents, most of which are available at hardware stores and convenience stores across the country.
Klan labs are miniature chemical factories, and whether they use the latest technology or yesterday's kitchen appliances, they all have but one purpose: the production of illegal drugs. While LSD, synthetic heroin, and other substances can be made in these labs, the overwhelming product of choice is methamphetamine. It takes very little to set up a Klan lab in a kitchen, bathroom, garage, or basement. Even hotel rooms, recreational vehicles, and boats have been used as clandestine laboratories. Klan lab operators may also use local self-storage facilities to house the chemicals they use. Less than 1 quart of ether can explode and level a small house. These labs often contain gallons of ether, along with other chemicals that can explode, catch fire, cause severe acid burns, or poison or cause cancer. Some substances may even be hazardous in more than one way.
A variety of chemicals will be encountered in the majority of the labs, which would be ephedrine reduction type laboratories. Those chemicals usually include ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, which is obtained from many thin tabs, Sudafed tabs, which are commonly found at truck stops. Also, some other items to watch out for, of course, ether, anhydrous ether, which is extremely flammable, explosive item. If someone would smoke in a laboratory, some type of fire would ignite it. It could be as dangerous as dynamite.
But the obvious dangers surrounding Klan labs do not deter those people who want to break the law and manufacture illegal drugs. Because it is so easy to obtain the needed materials and equipment, you can expect the clandestine drug lab to pop up in the most unlikely of places.
Yeah.
You may accidentally encounter a Klan drug lab during a routine arrest or a casual investigation. So be extremely careful when you see rooms set up like this. The key to defusing a Klan lab bomb is knowing when you've got one. When you do have a Klan lab or suspect one exists, play it by the rules. The fundamental rules of safety: read all labels and warnings. Use protective equipment. Do not smoke, drink, or eat near the lab. Don't touch your eyes, mouth, or mucous membranes with your hands until after you are completely decontaminated. Never work alone, and make sure you have a chemist available to answer questions and point out hazardous conditions. Do not turn on or turn off anything. Even the minor friction caused by turning on a light switch could trigger an ether explosion. Also, do not unplug cookers, heating elements, or cooling equipment in use at the lab. These actions might trigger an explosion. For the same reason, do not shoot firearms near a laboratory. Other equipment you bring into a lab could generate heat or friction, so do not use tools that might trigger an explosion. These include flash bulbs and flashlights. Use only explosion-proof flashlights and electronic camera strobes. Do not mix any chemicals. Some chemicals may ignite into a fire when they are combined. Others can produce poisonous gases when mixed. Do not taste, touch, or directly smell any substance. Contact with these chemicals through the skin or even by breathing may cause loss of consciousness, sickness, or permanent injury. Don't take chances. Always have first aid kits, fire extinguishers, and medical assistance available. Finally, don't ignore any of these rules for the sake of expediency, or you may light the fuse to your own chemical time bomb. Everyone must know the hazard going in, what their job will be, not only in taking down the suspects, but in keeping a mistake from bringing down the house, literally. Possibly the most important piece to solving the Clan Lab time bomb puzzle is having the right equipment and the proper training and how to use it effectively. Working around hazardous chemicals requires extensive training and specialized equipment. You want to make the arrest, but you don't want to risk your health or your life in the process. The Indiana State Police and other law enforcement agencies have gone to great lengths to develop equipment and procedures designed to minimize the risk to members of Clan Lab raid teams.
We didn't have the respiratory protection devices that are available today. Our only concern in that period of time in the early 80s was basically if the chemist was alive, you'd be alive. And our only concern was to get into the lab safely, take the chemist down, disassemble, get out. And that's what we did. Today you have a clandestine laboratory safety course. You have lab equipment that's far better than anything that we've ever had. Today you'd be a fool not to wear that equipment. You can spend the next 12 years of your life wondering if your liver is going to fail like I am, or you can use that equipment.
After sufficient planning and preparation, there are 5 stages to a successful Clan Lab raid. They are: Stage 1, actually executing the raid. Stage 2, hazard assessment. Stage 3, processing suspects and evidence. Stage 4, decontamination. And Stage 5, hazardous waste disposal. Care must be taken at each of these stages. One of the puzzle pieces you may have to find and secure are the presence of booby traps.
Some of the more commonly found booby traps that are associated with clandestine drug labs are the common pipe bomb found in the Kansas City area in 1997, is the filled light bulb. The light bulbs can be filled with an assortment of products: ether, acetone, gasoline, or any of your smokeless or black powders. When screwed into the receptacle and you turn the switch on, the bulb will explode. One of the most common outdoor booby traps that can be found is the common fishing line or monofilament line attached to a hand grenade. This type of booby trap is a mirror image of a military booby trap called the toe tapper. This is designed to go off when a person steps on it just with body weight.
During a raid, you'll not only have to deal with the intentional dangers posed by booby traps, but with the accidental exposure to chemicals. This is where hazardous assessment is important. The help of specialized equipment and a trained chemist ensures that safety will be maintained at all times. Level B protective clothing with a self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA, is utilized.
Using now is a Draeger hand pump. What I'm doing is I'm testing for parts per million in this sample of acetic acid. After I do the required amount of pumps, I'll get a reading of parts per million in the atmosphere coming from this container. I'm looking here, it reads 20 parts per million on my Draeger tube.
Once hazards have been assessed and precautions taken, evidence may be processed in small quantities and with extreme caution and knowledge of what it is that is being collected. Level C protective clothing with an air purification respirator, or APR, is utilized. The fourth stage is decontamination, involving a variety of steps that are taken to make sure hazardous materials are not inadvertently breathed or are rubbed off onto the skin. Finally, in Stage 5, the hazardous materials are contained and disposed of by trained hazardous waste haulers. It is during these last two phases of the raid that you will encounter the last piece to the puzzle. Cleanup and transportation are two areas where it is easy to let your guard down. Don't. A mistake here can be just as deadly as when you first entered the lab. An additional note. Clan lab operators operate with the same MO when it comes to obtaining and transporting these hazardous chemicals from the point of purchase to their lab. This means law enforcement officers can, in effect, encounter a situation as dangerous as a clandestine drug lab during a routine vehicle stop or vehicle chase. And if not handled correctly, that vehicle could be a rolling bomb just waiting to go off. If you should inadvertently come across dangerous chemicals or a boxed clandestine laboratory during a routine traffic stop, remember to exercise the same fundamental rules of chemical safety you would use at a clandestine lab found in a residence. Do not allow anyone to smoke near the vehicle. Do not touch or move the vehicle or chemicals. Keep yourself and the suspect away from the chemicals until Clan Lab certified personnel can arrive at the location. Some clues that can tell you a suspect may be transporting a clandestine laboratory or chemicals to produce methamphetamines are glassware and or mason jars, heating mantles, bottles of Red Devil Lye or other drain openers, red phosphorus, denatured alcohol, starting fluid, hydrogen chloride gas cylinders, muriatic hydrochloric or sulfuric acid, anhydrous ammonia, Coleman fuel, or pills containing ephedrine, pseudoephedrine iodine crystals, and bottles. Remember, an accident of spilled chemicals in a vehicle can be just as dangerous as exposure to a clandestine laboratory. Because of the violent reactions of chemicals found in clandestine labs, you have to be on your guard at all times. Remember, you are the lifeline between a dangerous drug lab and the community. Everyone depends on your actions. Be wise, be careful, be trained. And if we haven't convinced you by now, we'd like to leave you with this final thought.